the 49ers Roundtable podcast here with 49ers RedZone. I'm your host, Rohan Chakravarthi, and with me, I've got three special guests today. Niners Sickness Podcast, 49ers Cast with Van Wesley, and then Chris Polo, who we've seen before on the show. We're talking all things 49ers, the offseason, training camp, and everything else. Be sure to tune in right after this.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on three. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the 49ers Roundtable podcast. As I said, thank you all for tuning in. And before I start, thank you, Kimberly, for tuning in. Niners Sickness Podcast. Welcome in. So we've got a special show, but before we start, I wanted to give a quick shout out to the three guests that I have with me today, and have all y'all shout out your things so that people can know where to find you guys. Niners Sickness, let's start with you.
Hey, everyone. Nice. I'm glad to be here on this live. This is Niner Sickness, and those that are watching me on my channel, welcome. Welcome to all my viewers. Welcome to the 49ers Roundtable training camp discussion with my fellow peers tonight, and I hope you guys enjoy yourself.
49ers Cast, how about you?
What's up? Sorry, it's cutting in and out.
Got you. Just shout out whatever you've got and where people can find you.
Well, what's up? A lot of people know me on IG, 49ers Cast with Van Wesley. I'm kind of controversial. A lot of people, they either love me or they hate me. I try to get real with the content, try not to be too delusional. But at the same time, I ride or die with my Niners, no matter what. So, that's just kind of what I'm all about, man. I appreciate you having me on this thing, and I love meeting everybody new and things like that. This kind of gets me out there to see people really who I am and what kind of person I am, and I love talking Niner football, man.
Perfect. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Rohan. So, yeah, I do my own podcasting too. I'm on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. It's just the Polo Show. So, if you look at my YouTube, you can find me there. Also, my Twitter handle is in my display name. So, if you go there and hit the link tree in my bio, you can find all the platforms I'm on. But I talk various sports, mostly Niners and Warriors, especially heavily Warriors recently because of those NBA finals. So, I've been jumping on other people's shows to talk about that stuff, talk about some Niners stuff as well the last couple of months, and going to continue to collaborate with some other well-known 49er content creators. So, I'll keep putting stuff out there.
Perfect. And guys, you know the purpose of talking here today. We're talking some 49ers football, and really the biggest part of the news in the last couple of weeks was the recorded State of the Franchise annual episode for the 49ers. They did an interesting thing this year. They posted it live this year, and so for me, I wanted to hear your guys' takes. What did you guys think about the 49ers podcast, or not podcast, but State of the Franchise episode, and what were your main takeaways? Beto, we can start with you.
One of the key areas that I really liked is when I heard Kyle Shanahan speak about the offensive line. I know there's a lot of questions in the offensive line, especially with the changes, with Alex Mack retiring, Tomlinson moving on with the Jets. There's a lot of question marks at the left guard, center position, and then Mike McGlinchey coming back from injury. How well is he going to play? But what I liked about Kyle, he said that just because you don't recognize the names, and I think he was referring to Jake, the gentleman that's going to be starting at center, it doesn't mean the line got worse. He feels that it's going to get better. Now time will tell. I like the way he confirmed and talked about Trey Lance, about his ability to do what he does. So he was very positive. It was encouraging to me that they're definitely going with Trey Lance, and this offensive line is, even though it still needs to prove itself, it's not as bad as a lot of us think. I think they have it under control, and hopefully it plays out.
49ers Cast, what about you?
So I mean, as far as the takeaways on what's going on, I mean, there's obviously a bunch of drama going on. Trey Lance, Jimmy G, Debo, things like that. I love how they keep everything contained, in the locker room and in the offices. The offensive line kind of, just with Beto, man, it kind of worries me a little bit because, again, you look at, your young quarterback. If Trey Lance is starting this season, you look at somebody like that who's got to worry about running around so much. People are already talking about his windup. So there's definitely a lot of things going on there. I'm not very fond the way Shanahan has built the offensive line. I mean, definitely Williams, you can't go wrong with that. Alex Mack was a stud, but they are built on speed and they are built to open things up. Unfortunately, man, you got to be able to keep your quarterback standing tall as much as you can. And I think that was a lot of the downfall with Jimmy G, is that he didn't get a chance to stand tall most of the time. So I'm hoping Trey Young can do that. I mean, I know he's got legs and things like that, but you can't run forever. So definitely offensive line. I don't think it's going to be a disaster, but with Trey Lance and everything like that, he's got to build that trust and he's got to know what he's got to do. Same thing with the Debo situation. That looks. I don't know how that's going to work. We saw today. Kittle was talking about, hey man, you do what you got to do. It's a bit. We all know it's a business. So. But I still trust Shanahan in keeping everything locked down and but like I said, I'm with Beto, man, that offensive line, man, we got to see what this, you got to keep that confidence on this young guy. And I'm personally a line guy, whether it's the defensive line or the offensive line, that's where it's got to start. They do a good job with building the defensive line. I mean, that rotation is just ridiculously deep. And they need to be able to do that with the offensive line and keep your quarterback upright. He doesn't need to be scrambling so much, so that's just my thing.
Real quick, I just want to ask a question. Are you guys coming in clear to each other? Because it sounds like you guys are breaking up to me. So I don't know if it's just my side or everybody's hearing the same way.
I can hear you totally fine. I don't know if you can hear me totally fine. Chris, what about you?
I can hear everybody.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. Better. Thank you.
But yeah, Chris, you go ahead. What are you thinking following state of the franchise?
Yeah, so to be honest, I have not really caught up on State of the Franchise. I was covering a bunch of Warrior stuff heavily, but the things that I have been hearing really the whole offseason is I love the way that Trey Lance has been talked about the entire offseason. There's been so many questions. He's gone under so much scrutiny, been criticized. I think over criticized for a guy who was literally supposed to sit his first year. And to see the way coaches are talking about him, see the way teammates are talking about him, I think is just super positive. Kind of the whole year, it kind of felt like people were talking about, oh, Jimmy Garoppolo's this great leader. And that was pretty much all they really said. Whereas Trey Lance, you hear them talking like, oh, this guy's going to be a superstar. Like he's going to be special. You even hear like Matt Mayoko. I think he was on a show and he was asked like, have you seen a quarterback prospect like this before? And I think Matt Mayoko was like, not even close. So the stuff on Trey Lance sounds really, really positive, and I'm really excited about that. But like you were both saying, the offensive line, that's where it starts. And that's my biggest question mark, other than that safety position. We'll see how Vunga does. But the offensive line, like the 49ers win from the trenches. That's why they built that defensive line. So losing Alex Mack and not really knowing what McGlinchey's going to look like coming off that injury, it is a huge question to me. But they did draft quite a few offensive linemen. I'm really excited to see the competition. I think there's a lot of opportunity on the offensive line. I'm excited to see how that plays out throughout the training camp and the preseason, what guys might slide around, who's going to play tackle. Will some guys kind of move to guard? And also who doesn't make the team. And like Donovan West is a question mark. I don't think he's going to start. I don't think any rookie center would start in the Shanahan scheme. But it's just interesting because they really added a lot of young pieces on that offensive front. So I really want to see how that looks and how it works for Trey Lance, because blocking for Trey Lance is going to be a lot different than blocking for Jimmy Garoppolo. So that to me is super positive. Just hearing the stuff people have said about him. I just need to see how that offensive line looks.
Yeah, I mean, I think you all three make valid points about the offensive line, right? When you talk about the question marks, that is the main question mark right now, because apart from Trent Williams, there is something that needs to be asked about the other four positions on the offensive line. At left guard, well, I'm most confident about Aaron Banks out of the players. He hasn't played in an NFL game. He hasn't started in an NFL game. And so really, is that going to be an adjustment period? And if so, for how long? Because the 49ers can't necessarily afford to have such a slow start. given the teams that they play early in the season are some of the more favorable matchups. And then after that, they start to pick up steam and have a very, very tough schedule really for the majority of the season, and need to, well, not need to, but they're expected to make the playoffs this year. Jake Brendel, like we've been talking about, he hasn't had the opportunity as much to start. He's been a primary backup, and he's entering his age 29, age 30 season. So really, at this point in his career, how much can you expect from him? I'm a little more optimistic than others from him, just based on a number of factors that I've said in previous podcasts. But still, there are question marks that arise at the center position, especially after losing a trusted guy like Alex Mack. At right guard, we don't know who the starter is right now. Is it Jalen Moore, or is it Daniel Brunskill, or is it somebody else that pops up, right? Could it be one of the rookies? That's a question mark at the moment. Obviously, if it's Brunskill, you get continuity with the offensive line at that position, although I don't know how valuable that is, given that everybody that Brunskill played around at the center and at right tackle are going to be different than they were last year, since Tom Compton was a starter for the majority of the season and Alex Mack was a starter for the majority of the season last year as well. And then obviously at right tackle, is McGlinchey going to be ready week one, or is it going to be Justin Steele, who's coming off an injury of his own? He had a torn ACL last year, missed the entire season, and now he's coming in. He's the first team right tackle, but we haven't necessarily seen him play in actual NFL action in a while. And how does he respond to pads come training camp? So I think the offensive line struggles, or not struggles, but the offensive line questions are certainly all right. When we look at what Kyle Shanahan and company said during the state of the franchise, I thought it was interesting, specifically around the defensive line, right? Kyle Shanahan raved about how they have this philosophy to win games. When a lot of teams are predicated on offense, the way that you, especially in the passing attack, the way that you destabilize that offensive passing attack is with a strong defense, especially a defensive line and a pass rush. And Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch talked about stockpiling defensive linemen, specifically talking about the addition of Drake Jackson, hence why they have 17, 18 defensive linemen on the roster currently, but a ton of those guys that can compete. That was my main takeaway, in that they continue to add, even though they have such a deep room, because those guys can compete, and they're at the most important position on this roster for the 49ers.
Yeah, I agree with that, and hopefully they'll be able to adjust and make the proper calls they need. We'll find out in training camp. But one of the things I do like is that Kyle Shanahan's scheme kind of helps out the offensive line, and having a little bit of a mobile quarterback helps out too. But I also agree that you got to keep him upright. You got to protect Trey. So would I rather have Trey starting this year with Alex Mack and Thomas in there? Yes, but we're going to find out soon if the Niners make the proper adjustments in that offensive line.
Yeah, one topic I wanted to ask your guys' opinions on. Surprisingly, the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan and all, talked about three of their important offseason additions, and they weren't at primary positions of the 49ers in terms of need. But it was Ray McLeod, Oren Burks, and then also the other guy in George Odom. All three who were signed to play somewhat of a special teams role alongside their offensive and defensive role. Kyle Shanahan, when talking about these special teams players, said he liked players that not only can compete on special teams, but also have the ability to compete as offensive or defensive players, noting that especially with Burks, they looked at the player as a defensive player first, while then focusing on the special teams ability. What do you guys take away from Kyle Shanahan's notion of not necessarily requiring, but looking at players to be two-way players and not necessarily just special teams players, essentially saving roster spots in the process because you have guys that do two roles with one spot? Chris, go ahead first.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. And with the special teams thing, that's the thing I do like about this 49er team is I know a lot of people sometimes have this notion like, oh, they're not aggressive. But the second the 49ers see a weakness, they attack that in the offseason. And it was pretty highlighted with Ray McLeod, Odom, and Burks. And I really love that Ray McLeod signing. I've only heard really good things about him, even just as a receiver. And I do like that, have guys make an impact. especially if they're depth pieces. It's always, you want your depth pieces to be able to play special teams. And that is a place that they lacked. Like, they were really bad at special teams. So if you can have guys that can impact, like Ray McLeod catching passes, or if it's, Odom getting some time at safety, whatever it might be, if you can get some depth and they're going to improve that special teams, that's a huge plus to me. I know people like to think that special teams is not that important, but it's very, very important. I mean, look at the Green Bay Packers. They just lost to us because of special teams. So making sure that you tighten that up, because you had one of the worst special teams units in the league. Looking at the way the rest of their roster is set up too, they can make some serious noise if they're really sound on all three phases of the game.
Yeah, I don't know who's next. Me?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I agree. Special teams is a very important part. That's something that we really, really lacked on last year. We had the better special teams in Green Bay. They were worse than us. But generally speaking, there was I believe there was 2 to 3 games that we could have won last year, and we didn't because of special teams, and that would have been different in the win and losses column. So adding 3 key players to that special teams is great. And with a 53-man roster, you have to get players that you can utilize not only on special teams, but at their specific positions they play. And I'm like you. I like Ray McLeod. I heard nothing but good stuff from him. I think he's going to give Denny Gray a good fight for that 4th spot at receiver. And I think they're going to use him more than what people realize. And when I say use him, I'm referring as a receiver than just a punt returner. And Burke, I don't know about Burke. I think they may not use him on defense, but he's available there. But I wouldn't be surprised if George Odom is also used as safety here and there. I think his ability, he's shown a lot with the Colts towards the end of the year that he's able to handle that. So bringing in 3 key positions to this roster that not only are they very good at special teams, and that's the reason they were brought in, but they also can be able to provide help at their respective positions, linebacker, receiver, and safety. And I like that. So I'm excited about our special teams. I don't know about you guys, but I got tired of starting at our own 10-yard line, 15-yard line, when the opposing offense was starting at their 30, 35. That was very frustrating. So hopefully that will change, and I can't wait to see the electrifying Ray McLeod kind of bring a little bit of Glenn. I can't think of it. What was the name of that receiver that came from Miami a few years back? It was electrifying, and Ted Ginn, I believe his name was. So hopefully we'll get some excitement there.
Yeah, 49ers cast, what do you think?
Well, definitely. See, the thing, what's really frustrating to me is the 49ers are a championship team, whether they had, Garoppolo, things like that. And Beto's right. I mean, that extra 8 yards is a huge difference. Special teams getting, kicking off, starting at your 35 or however it is. But, there's always, room for improvement. But like I said, I see that I've seen the 49ers team as a championship team since 2019. Once they get into the playoffs, they're a deadly team. I was really pushing for a playoff run in 2020. I mean, get into the playoffs 8-8 in 2020, and I can guarantee you we would have been good. I'm not saying we would have won a Super Bowl, but I definitely know we would have been dangerous, just as we were dangerous this year or this past season in the playoffs. It's always that one play. We're always losing by that 3 points. That's just frustrating, but. Definitely, improving the special teams is a big thing. And, I'm excited for Ray McLeod. I'm excited for Odom, see what he can do. Defensively with, Huff, definitely excited to see him out there. He's working with Polamalu. That guy's got that energy out there. He's young, he's hungry. With the exit of Tart, him and Jimmy Ward have been working together. When you're playing safeties, man, you got to know what's on each other's mind, who's covering who. And that's a big thing when you see Ward and Huff out there working. So, and then you got Bet Odom, see what he's going to do. So, definitely excited for special teams. I think, offensively, we're definitely going to, it's going to be tough. I think offensively when it comes to, Trey Lance getting his bearings down and, and he needs to trust himself. He can't rely on every single offensive lineman. He's got to go out there, trust himself, trust that he can do it. His receivers are going to do just what they did with Jimmy G and make him believe, hey man, just get me the ball and I'll catch it. I'll do what I have to do to catch it. And that's what these guys go out there and do, so, definitely excited to see, anything that's happened. That's the thing that's frustrating about the 49ers is they always, they keep everything in the dark and everybody's like, oh my God, okay, what's going to happen? You got all the other teams that, who's starting, who's out there, this, that 49ers always seem to wait till September 10th before they name who the starters are, so definitely exciting season again, coming off the NFC Championship game, with a 3-point loss.
Yeah. And Beta, you talked about Oren Burks, right? And how you don't know necessarily what role he might play. Well, injuries have been a very clear part of the 49ers, like really since Kyle Shanahan and all arrived, right? We've had 2 injury deprived seasons in the last 5 years, which have costed the 49ers playoff runs. And last year at the linebacker position, we had Dre Greenlaw miss 14 of the 17 regular season games. Who stepped in? It was safety turned linebacker convert Marcel Harris, who played 36% of the defensive snaps. Now, I'm not entrusting Oren Burks with a starting linebacker role. He wasn't given that back in Green Bay either. But I'm thinking that if an injury occurs, Kyle Shanahan said it himself. We signed Oren Burks because we believe that if one of our 3 guys goes down, we have a guy that we can plug and play as a linebacker, as a valuable athletic backup linebacker. And that's where I view Oren Burks. I think he's the 4th linebacker on the depth chart where if the 49ers need to, they can insert him in. He's essentially our Marcel Harris replacement with just a better special teams capability, given his ability to tackle and is also his vision at the linebacker position and athleticism.
I agree. Definitely agree on that.
And now that we're talking really about these guys, right? McLeod, Burks, and George Odom, these are just 3 of the signings that we had this offseason, 3 of the major moves. Which was your favorite offseason move? Beto, we can start with you.
My favorite one is Ray McLeod, just because field position to me makes a huge difference, especially with any quarterback, but especially with a young quarterback coming in like Trey Lance. You want to put him in a position where he doesn't have to start towards his own end zone. He can, start him at the 30. So, and then also how he's going to be utilized with a lot of reverse. They're going to on the backfield. I think Ray is going to be, I like to call a miniature Debo. Without actually going straight into the linebackers, but I think they're going to use Ray a lot, and I'm excited to see what he does. But just changing the field position and punt returns is what excited me. So out of the 3, and I like all 3, Ray is definitely my favorite.
I really like the signing of Ward. Get a solid cornerback in there. I mean, that's basically. The defense obviously was lacking last year. I mean, we definitely get, injured in that position. JV went down the year before. I like that they brought him back, gave him another shot. We see what he can do when he's healthy. I mean, so we're just as deep at cornerback as well. I really liked a lot what Thomas was. I really liked Ambry Thomas last season because you can see the progression every single game. He wasn't getting worse. He was just getting a little bit better. So that I'm excited to see, as much as I really, special teams, of course, you're always excited, but I really want to see that shut down, cornerback defense. When I'm not saying we're going to have that, pure shutdown, but just enough to get Boza in there. I'm really excited to see Drake Jackson. I want to see if he can get in there and just really compliment Boza and, get Boza those extra 4 or 5 sacks that he can get. Like if D Ford was healthy, I mean, that would have just been a ridiculous defensive line if he was just 100% healthy since 2019. We saw what he did in the beginning of 2019 with the 49ers. But like I said, that's one thing I'm excited to see, is to just get on these receivers, jamming these receivers to get that line right at those quarterbacks. We don't want these quarterbacks to breathe. We're playing a super, super tough season this year, like the 5th hardest schedule. So we can't let these quarterbacks go back there and stand around and burn that team. So that's what I'm excited to see, what Ward can bring to this team.
Yeah, mine is also Charvarius Ward. to add on to a few things with that signing, like I was saying earlier, when there's a weakness, this team, this front office, they will address it. And everyone knew, like, when are the Niners going to get a corner? The last time they really made a splash in free agency to get kind of like a bigger name, more expensive corner was Richard Sherman. And even though it didn't last very long, it was a really valuable signing. And to go out and get Charvarius Ward, he's one of the best corners in man coverage. And he's also, I think he's 26 years old. So on this contract, you're probably going to get the best of him. If I remember correctly, he was undrafted. This guy's gotten better every single year. I've talked to Chiefs fans too. They love Charvarius Ward, his attitude, his work ethic, and he's gotten better every single year. So I feel like that pattern is going to continue as he goes into the season at 26. And he's never had the pass rush that he's about to have, and the linebacking core in front of him as well. So the fact that he can buy our pass rush a few extra seconds, the front seven's also going to bail him out in any situations if he is slipping up a little bit. And if you look at the playoffs, back-to-back weeks, even though they lost the championship game to the Bengals, he was in charge of covering Jamar Chase and Stephon Diggs back-to-back weeks. They were non-factors in both of those games. So if they can get someone who can do that on the Chiefs defense, imagine what he can do on this Niners defense when they're healthy with Warner and Bosa and Armstead, and also if Kinlaw pans out, and they have a carousel at that other edge in terms of pass rushing. So I really like that Ward signing. I think it really changes the dynamic of this defense. Like, it kind of felt like last year you could get away with attacking their corners. You could get away with that. And this year, if they're all healthy, I mean, even imagine if Jason Verrett was healthy too. The cornerback position for the 49ers defense does not feel like a place you can just pick apart. It feels like a place that is actually a strength of theirs at this point.
Yeah, I think you all make good points. Ward and McLeod, right? When we talk about special teams, I think Chris mentioned it, but our special teams unit was not good last year. It was 27th overall in DVOA. I forget who mentioned against the Packers game, but the reason that we defeated the Packers was because of special teams, and really it's because the Packers were the worst special teams unit in the entirety of the NFL. The 49ers lost multiple games last year solely due to special teams, with that being the primary reason. You can point to both Seattle games as a factor of where the 49ers lost just due to special teams, right? With muff punts, with poor field position, and things like that as factors as to why the 49ers ultimately lost those games. And in a division where it's so tough to win games, in a conference where really one game can change the outcome of whether you make the playoffs or not, just as it was last year, I think that every game matters, and that's where special teams was the one unit where the 49ers needed to improve to at least make that maybe a top 15 or around a 15 to 20 unit up from 27 this past year, to perhaps cost them a game or two less, which would make a huge difference. And then when you talk about Charvarius Ward, you finally are able to play cover one man now. The 49ers have tried that for years and years. They signed Richard Sherman to be a lockdown corner, but towards the end of the Sherman 49er experiment, Richard Sherman didn't really have that gas in him, that the athleticism required to play cover one man, and so they shifted to more of a zone scheme under Robert Saleh back in 2020. Then in 2021, you want to play cover one man again with Jason Verrett, and he goes down with an ACL injury, and so you don't have the personnel to pretty much play cover one man. You saw that in week 2 when DeAndre Lenore was getting burned. I think it was Quez Watkins got him 91 yards or something like that, and so you immediately had to change to accommodate for your cornerbacks. But now with Ward, with Mosley on the outside, you can play cover one man, have Talanoa Hufanga in the box where he's most comfortable, have Jimmy Ward as the overhang safety where he can play a number of different roles, and you have pieces where you don't necessarily have to confine players to one specific spot. Instead, you can move them around like Ward to perhaps inside the box or in the slot, and then have a guy like Dante Johnson go out there, or have a guy like George Odom, if you're confident in cover skills, to go out there. So I think there's a number of possibilities that you can have with this 49ers team, which is why the addition of a lockdown corner where you could play cover one man was really important. And I think the coaching staff agreed. Kyle Shanahan said during State of the Franchise that you don't pay corners that can't cover. Coverage ability is the number one thing, and that kind of indicates that he himself believes that the philosophy to winning games with cornerbacks is getting man coverage cornerbacks. And so I think that the 49ers achieved that goal this year after struggling with their cornerbacks at times last year.
No, definitely. And I mean, it is huge, because if you said, being able to trust that your corners can cover, one-on-one just to free up, let's say, Huff on a blitz, on a safety blitz to free up, they take those guys away, take that extra guy off of Boza, take that extra guy off of Drake, take that extra guy off of, Kinlaw. I'm excited to see how Kinlaw is going to move this year. I don't know if he's going to be a big sack guy, but he's definitely, I think, just going to be a big guy in the middle. That's just brute strength that, you still got to keep an eye on him. I think he's going to clean stuff up. Definitely excited to see what this guy's going to look like with healthy knees, so. But that's the part I'm excited about, is just getting quarterbacks uncomfortable. Just not knowing that they could stand there and say, hey, I'm going to aim for this guy. I'm going to aim for this guy. Like, just knowing that they can get hit on all sides of around his body. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, especially on those like third and short situations.
Yes.
When, you don't want these receivers being able to just ease into whatever their route is, being able to really throw them off and make the quarterback have to sit there and kind of think about it a little more and feel that pressure. 100%. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, the Ward, Charvarius Ward, it kind of slipped my mind for a bit, but I'm excited about him too. And I agree with you guys. If he can handle one side, I mean, if you remember 2020 when Jason Verrett was healthy, his 1 year of health, even though we had Bosa out and we had what's the name, the kid that went to Seattle and came back, Hyder, yeah. And he was able to penetrate because we were able to keep up with the receivers a little bit in 2020. Last year was a whole complete mess because everybody was hurt. So the idea that we bring Ward, they can sit there and cover a receiver, and then either Emmanuel Mosley or Emory Thomas or Jason Verrett, depending if he can stay healthy, can be on the other side. If that's the case, they can move Emmanuel Mosley to corner, slot corner position. He played that in 2019. He played very well there. So, and I agree with 49er cast that having a good corner now opens it up for the safety. That's why the Niners are not so worried about who's playing opposite of Jimmy Ward, because we have Charvarius Ward coming in at corner, and we can allow Hufanga to do his thing, in my opinion. So I definitely like that signing as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we talk about these improved positions, right? We talk about cornerback, where the 49ers not only got Charvarius Ward, but a ton of depth. Special teams was a main place of improvement. Now, just looking specifically at positions, which position group did the 49ers improve at the most on offense and defense? Chris, we can start with you.
For defense, I want to say corner, just because the Ward signing was their biggest one. And we just talked about what that does for them, especially like if Jason Verrett is healthy. I mean, they're really deep. I mean, you can, if Jason Verrett's healthy, you can start to say that maybe the 49ers are have one of the better cornerback rooms in the entire NFL. Offensively, I mean, they lost some offensive linemen. I love the Ray McLeod signing. I like the Danny Gray addition, but honestly, and this is going to be very premature to a lot of people, but it's quarterback, because we all know that the liability last year was the quarterback position. So having a guy who we know from this standpoint can throw the ball down the field. He does have more velocity. He is more mobile. Just by default, that's going to allow Kyle Shanahan to do more things with his playbook and do more things with this offense. And assuming Debo's playing and you have Brandon Ayuk out there, who he has a really good chemistry with from what we've seen with the addition of a Ray McLeod, with the development of Juwan Jennings that we saw this past year, I think that opens everything up, because we saw this offense doing pretty good things when we could clearly see in many crunch time situations, especially like that Rams conference championship game, they just couldn't move the ball throwing it, right? And I think Trey Lance just gives them a lot more versatility, because teams can't really just load up the box and dare us to beat them with our quarterback at this point, because that's essentially what the Rams were doing, because they knew if we stopped the running game, we're going to force Kyle Shanahan to try to beat them, or to try to beat us in a way that he probably doesn't want to beat us. So I think if Trey Lance is the guy who we expect, I think that is the biggest, most massive improvement. Listen, people talk about, obviously there are going to be rookie growing pains, and he's not technically a rookie, but he's first-year starter, so there's going to be some growing pains there. But at the end of the day, Jimmy Garoppolo is making mistakes that a rookie quarterback makes anyways. So if Trey Lance is going out there just with that extra athletic ability, and he can stretch the ball down the field, he can throw outside the numbers, which is a huge thing as well. I don't see why they can't be explosive. And Jordan Elliott had a chance at the combine to kind of talk to RG3 for a little bit. I remember he posted that clip, and RG3 was talking about what he thinks and was saying that it can be fireworks in San Francisco with Trey Lance and Kyle Shanahan. So I think that just opens so many things up. So by default, I'm just going to go there.
Yeah, I agree with you. For me, it's the defensive line. I know we're deep already there, but it's the defensive line on defense. Javon Kinlaw coming back. I think this kid has something to prove to himself first and foremost, but that he is worth that number 1 draft pick 2 years ago. So I'm looking forward to see him. Nick Bosa, trying to get paid this offseason or next offseason. He's going to be hustling. And Eric Armstead is Eric Armstead. When you have a good Bosa on the other side, Eric Armstead plays well, in my opinion. Now, who's going to play opposite of him? Is it going to be Drake Jackson? I think he's a great addition, but he is a rookie. He is kind of raw. So I think they're going to have to work. I don't think he'll be a starter. I think they're going to, if they don't decide to cut Sampson because of the money they owe him, because they can save $6 million on him if they cut him, if everyone else playing, because they're not going to be able to have more than 11 D linemen anyway. So, but if Sampson is there or Charlie Minihue, the way he's come strong, Kerry Hyder came back, what he can do under our D-line coach. So I'm excited about the D-line with the pressure. And then now that we can cover on the back end and we can put, we can follow receivers, that's going to allow our pass rushers to get home. Now on the offensive side, I'm excited to see the running back with TDP being brought in. I think Trey Sermon finally is going to pick up this offense, and I think Trey Sermon is going to start to show that he was a worthy pick out of Ohio State. And, I can't say enough about number 25. This kid, 6th-round pick out of Louisiana. Nobody thought he would do what he did. I'm in love with this guy already. I'm looking forward to it. Now the running back situation, I don't know who's going to make that final cut. We know that Wilson could make it because of experience, but I think Hasty is on the outside looking in. I think Jordan Mason may have something to say to that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in training camp at the running position and also in the receiving position. I think Brandon Ayuk is really going to explode this year, especially with the addition of Trey. I think Trey will be able to Ayuk will benefit from Trey's ability to escape of the pass rushers, extend the plays, and allow the routes to develop. There's a particular play last year, real quick, against Houston that we saw where that it was, I think, in the fourth quarter, where he threw that deep ball to Debo for the touchdown. He had either Ayuk or Kittle, I forgot who he had open for a first down check down. Now, if Jimmy was quarterbacking, he would have went for that check down, right? But Trey Lance allowed Debo's route to develop and was able to throw that pass, and we got a touchdown. So I expect to see more of that. And a lot of people say, well, Kyle Shanahan doesn't really call deep balls. He's not known for deep passes. That's bullcrap. Nobody ever seen Matt Ryan in Atlanta. All he did was go deep. He can't do it with Jimmy. Once Trey gets comfortable back there, don't be surprised if you see a lot of throws down deep, at least just to keep the defense honest, because they always put 8 in the box, and we can still run the ball. If you can throw that deep ball, and even if it's a flag, sometimes they don't catch the ball, but it can be a flag. But we never saw that the last couple of years. So I'm excited about that. So on defense is D-line, offense is the running backs and the receivers, with the addition of Trey as well for me.
Yeah, I like what you said too about the Trey Lance pass, because there's an example I brought up like probably over a month ago of that same thing you just pretty much talked about. It was in the Cardinals game. It was in his first ever career start against a team that's undefeated. They were first place at the time. He's on the road. He didn't have that much time to prep because if I remember correctly, he wasn't taking starter reps really the whole week. And there was a play in the fourth quarter. It was like 3rd and 11, 3rd and 12, something like that. And you could clearly see, okay, Jimmy Garoppolo's quarterback, he's going to take that check down to Juszczyk like 3-4 yards to his left. But the zipped the ball down the middle of the field
Yep.
to Mohamed Sanu over the middle. Now he dropped it, but the fact that he saw that, allowed it, and
Yes.
trusted himself in his first ever start against a first place team in a divisional game was really, really positive for me. And then also, you mentioned defensive line. I also forgot that they have Toure on that defensive line as well. And they're deep.
Kamiko Toure.
They're deep.
Well, I'm here to defend Jimmy G.
Oh, come on now.
No, let me tell you, man, and I don't want to get off subject here, but I will talk about what we originally were talking about. I mean, of course, the improvement, the excitement, Ward, because I feel that this defense is going to be, and no disrespect to D Ford. I mean, I loved when D Ford got picked up. Unfortunately, the human element kicked in with him. And I mean, you guys saw in 2019, the first 6 games, we had 24 sacks when D Ford was in. When D Ford was out, it went down to nothing. But I feel with Kerry Hyder back there, I really think, Drake Jackson's going to go out there and show out. I don't know why. I just feel he is. And then Ward, I feel like we're going to get back to that 2019 swarming defensive line. I mean, guys, these quarterbacks could not do anything, if you guys can remember. First 6 games, man, quarterbacks were just in disarray, man. And definitely, I mean, like I said, I'm always excited for improvement. I mean, definitely excited for Trey Lance. I'm definitely excited, and on the offensive side, I'm definitely excited to see Debo, to see what he's going to do mentality-wise and what he's going to try to do. We both have no idea what's going on with that, but I'm actually excited to see Debo. I want to see what he's made of. Is his mentality going to get the best of him? Is he going to go out there and say, hey, man, I'm going to get paid, And I mean, I personally think a lot of it's not just money with him. I think there's obviously some disrespect stuff that he feels he is, but, and on the defense of Jimmy, I really feel, one of my problems I always had was, did Shanahan try to change Jimmy, or did Jimmy regress? And that was one of my main things, because if you look at Jimmy in 2017, when he came and played the last 5 games, when I saw Jimmy, I was like impressed. I was impressed how he ran the offense. I was impressed how he went out there and just played. And then when I saw him in 2018, before he went down, he looked a little bit different. He looked like he wasn't Jimmy. And I've been saying this the whole time. I'm always like, just let Jimmy be Jimmy. And again, I'm not saying anything like he should be here starting, whatever. I mean, it's time to move on. It's time to go. If he's there, he's there. If he's not, he's not. But I do try to show a lot of love to Jimmy, because I'm like, man, he revitalized this 49ers team when he did play. Without him, we would have never saw a Super Bowl. We would have never saw the NFC Championship this last season. But I do feel Jimmy was controlled. And that's what worries me about Trey Lance, is we saw the 2.5 games he played last season, it was Trey Lance being Trey Lance. He didn't look controlled. It looked like Shanahan just said, like, probably what he told Jimmy G in 2017 when Bethard went down. I just truly believe he just said, hey, Jimmy, you know what, man? We got 5 games left. Go out there, go play. Here's the standard playbook. Just go out there and do your thing. And he looks nice. Same thing with Trey Lance. Even though he didn't win, I have opinions on that in that Cardinals game, where I feel that the Cardinals, even though they were 8-0 or 9-0, whatever they were, they had a bad game. They were playing a bad game. But definitely excited to see what Trey Lance can bring, and I'm hoping that Shanahan lets Trey Lance be Trey Lance. That's my main thing. I just don't. I still believe in Shanahan. I still have some questions, but I just hope that he lets him be who he is and figure it out. That's my main thing.
I think those are all good points, right? And we see from John here that the Warriors drafted Patrick Baldwin. Just a quick sidestep, 428 overall. Chris, real quick, what are your thoughts on this? Because I have a couple of thoughts, and it's an interesting selection for sure.
Future All-Star, going to be in the G League for 2 years and then start in the NBA. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't even know how much their players are going to like. I don't know how much their draft picks are going to play. Like, it seems like they're really just going to run it back. They have Wiseman coming back. Like, how much is a first-round pick going to pay right now?
He's not going to play at all.
Yeah. So it's a Santa Cruz pick. It's probably a Santa Cruz pick. So we'll see.
But the upside on him coming out of college was crazy. I mean, high school was crazy. He didn't have a good college year at all at Milwaukee. So this is an interesting pick, especially because the last guy drafted at number 28 for the Warriors, that boy, crazy now.
I'll tell you, Warriors draft picks, like, count on them working out usually. I mean, like, Kevon Looney went in the back end of the first round. You look at guys they picked later in the drafts too, like Festus Ezeli, Draymond Green. Jordan Poole. Like usually they know what they're doing, so it's just a matter of their development. I don't read too much into the. They have 3 picks. They have 2 more. I don't even know if they're going to use them all. So we'll see. I'm sure one of them will become an all-star somehow.
Yeah, definitely. But getting back to the 49ers talk, I think that like the positions that we mentioned are good. I think obviously quarterback is the most controversial one. Do we know whether it's currently an upgrade or not? I think a lot of people anticipate that it will be just based on the upside. That is yet to see, and training camp provide a clear indication of that. For me, I think some of the most improved groups, wide receiver and offense, I thought that not only with the additions, but just with development, right? Brandon Ayuk is entering his 3rd year, which normally is the year where receivers blossom in the 49er offense in the Shanahan era. Deebo Samuel gets another year under his belt, probably remains a little healthier now as well, conditioning wise. You have Juwan Jennings stepping into a full-time role after blossoming once he got the starting role in Week 9 forward last year. And then you sign Raymond McLeod, you add Danny Gray. This is the best 49er wide receiver room that they've had during the entirety of the Shanahan Lynch era, in my opinion. Defensively, Chris, you mentioned it. I think the cornerback room is definitely the best. Not the best, but the most improved, just because they were the worst group of the bunch last year. And now they're the deepest group apart from the defensive line. They've probably got 8-9 guys that could compete for a 53-man spot alongside 5-6 guys that could compete to play everyday roles, right? You have guys that you drafted before, like an Ambry Thomas. You have guys that you drafted this year that could compete, like a Samuel Womack, alongside the veterans in Verrett, in Mosley, and in Charvarius Ward. Not to mention Swiss Army knife Mr. Dante Johnson, who ends up playing, getting on the field every time. So there are a ton of guys that can compete on this roster, which is why I like the upside at both positions, not only with the top end talent, but also with the depth. Now, all of this boils down to training camp, right? And who competes where. What is one prediction that all of you guys have for training camp? Beto, we can start with you.
Wow, that's training camp's going to be a very, very exciting this coming up in July, because man, so much depth everywhere. There's going to be players that are going to have to be cut that you normally wouldn't cut. Prediction on training camp, man, that's a very good question. I'm going to predict that Trey Lance is going to shut up a lot of haters more in training camp, because I know that in OTAs and mini camp, anybody looks good without the pads. Without the pads and just throwing the ball, anybody looks good. I still like what I heard about Trey, but once he puts on the helmet and the pads and they go 11 on 11, I want to see what he does. And I think he's going to continue to grow and impress a lot of people. I'm excited. I respect Jimmy, like Jimmy for what he did, but I cannot wait for Trey to take off and he's gonna have his bump and bruises. But that's my prediction: is Trey Lance is gonna even do better than what he did in OTAs, and he's gonna show off in training camp how good a quarterback he is.
As far as me, I was thinking about it. I read when you inboxed me as far as what we were going to talk about, and it's such a hard, as far as predictions. It's like It was tough, man. I sat there and I'm like, okay, Trey Lance. Like Trey Lance is Trey Lance. Like I don't ever have a problem with anybody new coming in. As far as I don't think he really has haters. I think he's got a lot of people that kind of are a little upset that a lot of the faithfuls disrespecting Jimmy G. But beyond the point, it's super hard. And the only thing I can think of, is prediction wise. I think Huff grabs that starting safety job, and I don't think there's a competition for him. I think he's going to go out there. He's going to show out. I think everybody else is going to do their job. I mean, it is going to come down to actual gameplay, training camp, OTAs, everybody looks great, but once you get those pads on, once you get out there and the calls are being made, things like that, but I do believe that, one of my things is Huff's going to get that starting job next to Jimmy Ward. And that's what I think is going to happen. I think he'll beat out all the vets for that.
Yeah. And my prediction, Rohan, I I think I told you this before. Brock Purdy is going to beat out Jimmy Garoppolo for the starting quarterback job. No,
Still, guy.
I got tagged in that tweet that like someone like wrote a piece, and I was
It's
like,
my
what?
website too. It's my site too. Like y'all gotta know that that's a troll. Come on, now.
I was like, wait, what? Me? And then I looked at it and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot I tweeted that. That was hilarious.
Yo, what if this guy really is this silent real? Like, it makes me wonder, because I don't want to talk about this person, but we all know who maybe we're talking about. I'm going to say he was maybe associated with the Jets. I don't want to give the guy clout. I don't want to give him clout. I'm just saying we all know, and it baffles me because I'm one of those people that I look outside the box and I go, dude, imagine if this shit is right. Imagine if it manifests, and I'm just like, it's so crazy, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah, the Brock Purdy. I'm just like, wow, what if he was that Tom Brady, like, 200th overall, like, wow.
If it's right, I'm going to have to question everything I've ever thought in my life. But yeah, I do think Hufanga, like, that is my thing too. I think Hufanga is going to win that starting safety job. I also think that there's a guy that a lot of people, like a lot of Niner fans, wanted, Leon O'Neal. I feel like he's not going to make the roster. I just feel like the lack of speed, the missed tackling, I don't think he's going to make it. I don't think like converting him to a linebacker is really in the cards either. So those would be my two things. I think Hufanga is going to win that starting safety job. And like a lot of people have been critical of him, and me too, but I do think that this year he is going to take a leap, especially now that Travarius Ward is there. It's going to make things a lot easier. The secondary is improved just because of that. The depth they have at, on the defensive front, the linebacker core they have, I think he'll shine. But I do think Leon O'Neal is going to be one of those guys that I feel like is kind of like a Niner fan favorite in terms of all the rookies coming in because he was a UDFA and a lot of people had him getting drafted in like the 5th, maybe 6th round. I think that's going to be a cut that we see.
Yeah.
You think he'll go to practice squad real quick?
Probably.
Okay.
You talking Leon O'Neal?
Yeah.
Yeah. Safety.
Yeah. I agree with you on that, Chris. I'll give a pushback in that I do think that he will be a linebacker convert on the practice squad this year.
Practice squad, right? Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think the 49ers will experiment with that because they have the option too. I don't know. I don't think he'll get claimed. If we're being honest, I don't think he'll get claimed. I think the 49ers will be able to house him on the practice squad. I forget the amount of money that they paid him as a bonus, but that was essentially there for him as well. But yeah, you get an option to play on the practice squad, be coached by D'Amico Ryans, who flourishes with linebackers. And there's a good amount of linebacking. There's a good linebacker core. They've got UNC linebacker Jeremiah Gemmel. They've got San Diego State's Segun Olubi, and now potentially Leon O'Neal as a linebacker convert alongside Indiana's Marcelino McCrary Ball as a couple of linebacker guys that they could keep on this practice squad, develop, and be the next wave of special team standouts or whatever they might be.
Real quick, do you guys think that they might, in the middle of the training camp, they might trade Greenlaw and get some picks for him?
Ooh,
I've thought about that.
I'll speak on this because I wrote an article about it actually today. I don't think they trade Greenlaw. I think they trade a different linebacker. Just look based on what they did last year. I think it's Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles that gets traded. And morning, I thought about it yesterday on stream, and I wrote about this morning. I honestly think just given how the 49ers have operated with their linebackers, right? Look at last year. Jonas Griffith, he was a practice squad guy, and he fetched a 6th-round pick. He never played a snap in the NFL before getting traded, and he got a 6th-round pick in return. The 49ers and these linebackers, other teams covet them because they know the work the 49ers do with these linebackers. Yep. And to me, I think Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles is miles better than what Jonas Griffith was last year, and they're the same age. They're both 25 years old right now. Flanagan-Fowles has proven to be, for the 2nd year in a row, proven to be a special teams contributor. And so to me, and real quick, Chris, I want you to give this before I continue on.
Jimmy Garoppolo is the worst quarterback I've ever seen in my life. I swear, him playing has got to be organizational malpractice. He's a backup. He's a backup. I just don't understand why people love him so much. There you go, Jesse. You got it.
Love it, brother. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, continuing on the Flanagan-Fowles point, Fleming Fowles featured in the defense, right? He played 9% of the snaps in 2020, only 15% last year in 2021. I talked about Marcel Harris earlier. The 49ers, he had no linebacker experience, wasn't really a great safety for the 49ers, and yet he outpaced Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles in terms of snaps on last year, playing about 35-36% of the snaps. So to me, Oren Burks is that fourth linebacker. Flannigan-Fowles is expendable because he's going into restricted free agency next year, meaning he's making $2.5 million as opposed to the $895,000 that one of these other linebackers, like a Segun Olabi, Jeremiah Gemmel, one of the undrafted guys would make. And I think it would be similar production given that they're primarily special teams focused. So to me, I think DFF is the one that gets traded.
Yeah, because like we were talking about this earlier, if they can afford Dre Greenlaw this year, obviously they can. Having him, I told you it wasn't recorded. Having him as a piece, like that is actually an improvement from last year because he only played 3 games. So having Dre Greenlaw, if he is healthy and available, with what we saw from Azeez Al-Shaair this past year too, and of course All-Pro Fred, like I said, elite linebacking core, the defensive front, and now you added Charvarius Ward in the secondary. The only real question mark to me is, maybe who plays nickel corner and then also the safety position. But I think that's not going to matter as much because of the Ward addition. So, I see them keeping Greenlaw, although I did see it as an option maybe in the offseason if they wanted to do that. But looking at the way the team's constructed right now, I see them just keeping him and just going full throttle to win a championship if they can this year because they have the roster that's capable for it.
I like that. I just want to say real quick hi to Jesse. Last second sport. That guy's funny, man. But no, I agree. I just thought, because I know they're not going to be able to afford him and Azeez. And I think personally, Azeez is a little bit better than Greenlaw for me. So Greenlaw could be one that they can get a little bit of higher draft pick, but we'll see. But the Niners are develop linebackers, so running backs and linebackers, and so we'll see what happens. But I'm looking forward to training camp. Training camp is going to be fun this year.
I just think, what I love about the team is it doesn't matter who's on our team. They can just, they're always, D'Amico Ryans brings the best out of the defense. I mean, it doesn't matter who's there. They just know how to bring them out. They know how to pick them. They know how to see them, and if you look at every player, like look at Kerry Hyder. I mean, we went and grabbed him in 2020.
Yeah.
He gets 7.5 sacks, goes to the Seattle Seahawks, and then now he's back. That's the thing I love about the team is they're very well coached. The players know the talent. They know they're there, and they bring the best out of everybody. They bring the best. I mean, yes, you can't always have a shutdown corner. You can't always have this, but they always know where the weakness is. They know where the strength is, and they play to it. And the thing is like, Chris is saying, like, we're a championship team. The 49ers have been a championship team since 2019. It's always those little things, and you look at, and I hate it, because you look at things like, you look at Bosa being held all the time, and you're just like, bro, like this is getting ridiculous.
Yeah.
You look at these calls, like, and like I said, I'm just saying this. I'm talking about every player. I'm not saying it just because of Jimmy, whatever. But Jimmy got hit in the helmet, I think last year against the Rams, and like he's yelling at the ref, and it's like they're just like, oh well, and it's like, bro, that's 15 yards in a first that you'll give the other team at any time of the draft. So it's always these little things. We're capable of playing regardless of the mistakes that Jimmy's did or the missed this or the missed that. It's always, I feel like the league is so against the team, and it really upsets me because it's like, it's just taking the gas out of the team. And it's like, man, how many more people do we got to fight, to just, get out there. We're better than a lot of these teams, man. I'll tell you what, if we would have went to that Super Bowl, that would have been our Super Bowl. And people talk about the bad pass by Jimmy and this and that. It's like, man, it's all a collective effort, man. Whether somebody missed their block, somebody missed their assignment here, somebody missed that. And it's just, we're such a dangerous team in the playoffs. And that's all I care about. Just get into the playoffs and that's it. Shanahan, he lets off the gas a little bit. I think I was a little upset more on that NFC Championship for him not going for it on 4th and 1 like he normally was last season. He was really putting the gas on 4th and 1, but we'll see what happens.
I think the only one that will disagree with you, bro, about the Niners making the playoffs would be the Packers. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers don't want the Niners in the playoffs.
Well, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, Betta, because you talked about the long pass stuff, and I'm like, hey man, we beat those teams with long passes. Shanahan had Matt Ryan and freaking Julio Jones. You got to go deep with those guys. Those are guys that are,
yep.
They're unstoppable. this year, or this past season, Shanahan did tell people, he said, hey man, don't put our quarterback, we're not a fantasy team, which actually was funny. I won my fantasy team this year and I had Kittle, Debo, and I had Mostert. And I'll tell you what, you talked about Mitchell and why you love him. I love him even more because when Mostert went down, I was like, shit, who am I going to pick? And Mitchell was sitting there on the free agent list. Just grab this guy. Sure enough, I was like, holy crap.
I had the waiver wire pickup of the year, and it was Cordero Patterson.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Oh,
yeah, I had I won my league. I went 8-5, and I beat out the guy that went 11-1 or 12-1, and it was great season.
that's nice. I do fantasy football, man. So if you guys ever want to play in a team, I'll give you guys that information.
Hell yeah.
For money.
Yeah, but I'm definitely excited though this year. I'm definitely excited like every year. I think with the 49ers have a good team, man. And you know what? This year is really going to prove a lot with Trey Lance, and I'll tell you why. If he starts and we can win out with a 11-6 and 12-5 record, good on him, because like I said before, we're playing a really, really tough schedule. AFC West, no joke. KC, Bolts, Raiders, all those guys, man, they're no joke. Denver, I'm a little like this with them. We'll see what happens, but I'm happy with a 12-5, 11-6 season with Trey Lance. I think that's good enough to get us into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think earlier during one of those scheduled prediction videos that I had, I think the original prediction I had was 11-6. I'll see if it changes closer to the season, just based on the information that we get, based on injuries or anything like that. But guys, overall, this was an amazing roundtable. Had a ton of fun talking with all three of you. Definitely glad to have all three of you on. Once again, be sure to shout out your stuff before we head out. Beto, you can start ahead. Go first.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Rohan. So if those that are watching and want to check out my channel, it's on YouTube. It's Niner Sickness Podcast. It's based off like being at the barbershop. I don't really provide like breaking news and who's in and out. We'll talk about it, but it's just if you want to go somewhere to hang out, man, and just get your favorite beverage, put your feet on the couch and just relax, bro. This is the chat to be in. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at Niner Sickness 49. And on Facebook, I have a group and a page under Niner Sickness that you guys are welcome to follow and support. And I would love to have you guys. Thank you.
Heck yeah, man. And Rohan, thank you for having me on. Chris, man, good to meet you. Beto, I'm 49ers cast fan. Wesley, I'm mainly doing Instagram, but I do have Twitter. My Twitter is 49ers cast 1. I do have a YouTube channel that I'm going to start building here more. I just rejoined Restream and got my setup. And actually, I got to do a shout out for Rode, because Rode hooked me up with my little Rodecaster here thing. So
I love. I have one myself. I love those, man.
Yeah, they sent me one for nothing, which was good. I've been getting
I've
been getting a lot of sponsors. Rode's got me hooked up, and a bunch of other people. So I'm really excited by that. So I haven't got everything set up. And Beto, you got to send me a request on Twitter so I can get with you, because I got to ask you a couple questions about this. But yeah, man, I really appreciate it, man, and I hope we can do it again and get everything. Let's get it going, man.
Love it.
Yeah, and I'm also doing stuff kind of similar to Beto. Like what I do is, just kind of want to kick back and just, enjoy time, listen. I talk about the Warriors and the Niners, so I'm doing both. Obviously, we're going to dive into a lot more Niners stuff. Lakers suck, and we're going to be talking about stuff with other people as well. I'm going to get other people on board. I'm going to start doing more live streams too once I get a few more things in order. But it's just the Polo Show. So if you just search that on YouTube, you should be able to find it.
Perfect.
If you go to my Twitter, which is in my display name right here, it's Chris Polo 2_. My link tree is there. I'm also on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, if you just want to catch some audio. So I'm in multiple platforms, and I'm like 15 subs away from 100, because I started this not too long ago. Once I get to 100, I am going to give away a free Nick Bosa jersey. So just by hitting subscribe and like sending me a picture that you subscribed, I'll automatically put you in that drawing. So once I hit 100, I'll send you a Nick Bosa jersey.
What's that one?
You're breaking
100.
up there. 100.
No, but where's the subscription? Like what is it?
YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and once I hit 100, I'm gonna just give out. I'll let whoever wins know. that you got the Nick Bosa jersey. It's going to be the home red, and it's brand new jersey too. It's new design, so it's going to be kind of sick.
Right on, Chris. Well, I'm gonna subscribe to both of you guys' channel, support you,
For sure, me
Chris,
too.
and
Gotcha.
if I happen to win, you can give it to another. We'll give it to someone else, another viewer, and
Yes.
bless them. I have so many jerseys, probably, and the one you're giving away is probably not gonna fit me anyway. So, we'll keep it real.
Yeah, same thing here, Chris. I'll subscribe and just if you pick my name, just give it to somebody. I'm the same way. I do a lot of giveaways. I get Beckett sends me a lot of signed stuff, so I have all that stuff. But we'll definitely subscribe, but give it to somebody else if my name comes up.
For sure.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Definitely. All three of you guys, thank you so much. Everybody in the chat, be sure to subscribe to all three of you guys. But once again, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the chat for popping. Everybody for tuning in from the beginning all the way to the end of this hour. All three of you, really appreciate your time. And guys, we will be back soon with some more 49ers Red Zone content. Stay tuned. And always be sure to check out the 49ers Web Zone content that I put out over there. And be sure to subscribe to this channel, like, and drop down a comment in the comment section below. But thank you. And as always, we'll see you guys next time.